Continental Tire Coach's Corner is NBC Football Night in America's Tony Dungy. Good morning, Tony. How are you today?
Hey, DP. Good to talk to you. I'm doing great. A little warm down here in Florida, but doing fine.
Okay. You're watching last night. You got Tampa against Jacksonville, and you got a quarterback who you thought was your future, and maybe you realize he's not your future. What do you do in a situation like that if you're the Jaguars with Blake Bortles?
Well, you have to make a decision. You have to say, we're going to take this year and really find out, or we're going to just open it up, do what's best, and try to win as many games as we can. And if that means we've got to make a change, we do it. That's a tough call when you've got a quarterback you've drafted. You want it to work. You just feel like we got to make this work. We got to give him the opportunity, and I think that's where they are right now. I think they'll stay with him, but it didn't look great last night.
And when you have a quarterback lose confidence, I don't know if you had a situation like that. You were obviously lucky to have Peyton Manning, but how do you get a quarterback's confidence back?
Well, when I came down here in '96 to the Bucks, they had drafted Trent Dilfer. I think he was in his third year or going into his third year, and we just basically said, Trent, you're going to be the quarterback for the next 2 years. Don't worry about it. We're going to build this, get some players around you, and you just got to go out there and relax and play. And he went through some ups and downs, especially my first year, especially early on. But we stayed with it. He got through that and developed. And sometimes you have to do that. You just have to say, as an organization, we're going to stick with him and give him a chance.
What teams do you look at now? Like who's piquing your interest right now?
Well, it's such a quarterback-driven league, Dan. I think you have to look at the young quarterbacks and who's doing well. I'm here in Tampa, so I hear all the excitement about the Bucs, and you see what Jameis Winston is doing and the confidence they have in him. Winston and Mariota were the 1-2 picks a couple of years back, and I think they're about ready to take off. Their teams have gotten better on defense. The Bucs have put a ton of skill position players around Jameis. I look for those two teams to be very good this year.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on both of them. I think both teams take that next step. I think Tampa's a playoff team. The one thing that worries me about Winston is he might be too confident.
Well, that's what they're working on. I know from talking to the coaches and seeing things down here, you don't have to make every single play. Every play doesn't have to be a touchdown. You don't have to be the focal point. And now the more people they're getting around him, I think that'll help. We went through that with Peyton when I got there to Indianapolis. Our defense wasn't quite ready yet. He was used to having to take chances, having to win games 31-28, so you feel like I've got to do it on every play. I think Jameis will learn that and relax and say, you know what, it's not going to be the worst thing to punt. It's not going to be the worst thing to throw this ball away and go to second down, and that's going to help them when that message gets through to him.
Any other teams that you're looking at, whether they're going to be better than what you think or maybe worse than what you think?
Well, I saw the Cowboys at the Hall of Fame game, and that is an interesting team to me because I think they have a lot of things in place, too. I got to spend some time with Dak Prescott, and he was super impressive as a young quarterback, too. But this Elliott situation, I think that has everything kind of in limbo there. And what's going to happen? How will they be if it is 6 games without their workhorse running back? But I think they have a lot of things in place to be very good.
Talking to Tony Dungy, Football Night in America analyst, former Bucs and Colts head coach, joining us the Continental Tire Coach's Corner today. When you look at Colin Kaepernick as a former coach, bringing him in, is it based more on his talent or why you wouldn't bring him in on his talent or his political beliefs, what happens before and after a game?
Well, I think there's a little bit of both. Anytime you kind of go against the grain for whatever reason and you have some red flags, then you have one strike against you. Now, one strike doesn't knock you out if you have some other things. If you have some talent, we've seen that over and over and over again. But what people are saying now is, what is Colin Kaepernick going to do for me on the field? And they're not ready to say, I'm going to buy into that and put myself in position to deal with all the fan backlash if I don't think he's going to bring a lot to the table. And to me, that's where it is right now. if you got the right system, I think Colin Kaepernick is still a dangerous player, and he could do a lot. But you have to tailor your system to what he can do. I really thought Seattle might have been the best situation because if Russell Wilson does get hurt, you plug Kaepernick in, and you can do the same thing and keep going with your offense. Outside of that, I don't know where he fits and where it's gonna happen. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I thought Seattle was the perfect place because of sort of the feeling, personality of that team, that part of the country. Pete Carroll is your coach. You get a guy who used to be in the NFC West as the backup quarterback. He's better than Trayvon Boykin. But I was surprised that they moved on from him.
Yeah, and, obviously they aren't worried about the off-the-field stuff. They've got their number one defensive lineman who's saying the same thing. I'm going to have a protest all year, and there hasn't been hardly anything said about that. So I did. I thought that would have been the ideal place for him to go.
I also saw the story where you challenged Tampa's professional sports teams to help pay to move a Confederate statue from in front of the local courthouse there, and explain how that came up and what was the response from those teams in the Tampa area.
Well, it was a great response. It was an odd situation. They've been talking about this statue for months, and the county commission has gone back and forth. They said they were going to move it. Everyone thought it was a done deal, that it was moved. And then in yesterday's paper, there was an article that said everyone thinks it's a good idea. They voted 4-2 to move it, but they don't have the funds, and they're not going to move it unless private funds come available. And they wanted $140,000 in 30 days. In the article, they say, we don't know if we're going to get this done. And to me, it just seemed a little bit ridiculous. So my wife and I decided that we would help out and do something that we could do. We contributed. And then I said, on social media, we need to get people behind this. And I'm going to start with the sports teams. And the response was unbelievable. And not only from the Bucks and the Rays and the Lightning, which was gratifying, but just from people giving $5, $10. And so in about 6 hours, they raised the money, $140,000, and they had to stop taking payments. So it was gratifying to see the citizens get behind what everybody thought was the right thing to do. Or I won't say everybody, but most people.
What do you see when you see those statues?
Well, I think as an African-American, you see the legacy of slavery and people fighting to keep slavery in existence. And it may not be offensive to everybody, but it's offensive to a significant part of our community. And we didn't think it should be on government property in a government place. And that was the thing, and I think everyone agreed with that. But then the question was how to do it and what to do it. And I think a lot of people just validated everyone's concern and said this is something that we should move, not on government property, not honoring a legacy that was offensive to so many people.
So you don't have a problem if it's somewhere else, you just don't think it should be on government property?
That was my opinion, yes.
Where is it going to be relocated?
I'm not exactly sure. It's a private family that's taken it, a private cemetery or something. I'm not totally sure, but it's not a government property where it's going to. You
grew up in Detroit. What do you remember about the Detroit riots?
I just saw the movie yesterday with my wife, and it brought back some memories. I was 11 years old, didn't really understand everything that was going on. My uncle ended up going into the police department right after that and rising to, assistant chief of police in Detroit. Just feeling like there needed to be some overhauls in the way we did things. But I remember, Dr. King getting killed, the whole thing, and it just discontent. Didn't know what it was all about, didn't understand it. Of course, I had to talk to my dad some to learn about segregation, and he spent time in Washington, D.C. and went through segregation. So it was all new to me as a young kid, but there was frustration and discontent. That's what I remember as an 11-year-old.
It's a pretty powerful movie.
Very, very.
Great talk to you, Tone. I'll see you in New England. Are the Patriots going undefeated this year?
I don't know if they'll go undefeated, but they've got a pretty strong team, that's for sure.
But it's them and then everybody else. There's nobody on their level this year?
No, that's all. It always starts out that way. Everybody thinks the defending champions are unbeatable. It's hard to repeat. And if I was a betting man, I wouldn't bet on the Patriots, not because I don't think they're the best team. I just think it's hard to repeat. It's not done that often. So if you have the Patriots versus the field, I would take the field and say there's somebody that's going to come out of nowhere and rise up.
Are we going to have an awkward situation again where Bill Belichick walks by and he greets you, and then he greets Rodney, and then he gets to me, and then he just keeps going? Like, remember at the Meadowlands when they had the butt fumble?
I think that could happen. If people don't tie, I think it could be kind of awkward.
Yeah, I know. It's like, hey, Coach Rodney.
I don't know what you did to Coach.
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything.
Well, I don't know.
Thank you, Tone. I'll see you in a few days.
DP. Looking forward to it. Yeah.
All right. That's Tony Dungy, Continental Tire Coach's Corner. Continental Tire, the official tire of Major League Soccer. Soccer fans expect peak performance on the pitch and also demand peak performance on the street. That's why Continental has built a tire for what you do. Whether you're heading to the game, taking the kids to practice, Continental has engineered a line of tires that includes the best-in-class wet braking, superb handling. Continental Tire, proud supporter of the Dan Patrick Show. Visit ContinentalTire.com to learn more.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.